Hi, everyone. Welcome back to WEI Tech Talk Podcast. Today, I'm your special host, Greg Smith with Palo Alto Networks. And we've got a fun group from Palo Alto Networks to officially take over the channel for the day. If you're a SOC director or a CISO, you'll want to stick around. We're skipping the usual marketing buzzwords and getting real about what it actually takes to consolidate your security stack. We'll talk about the real math behind ROI, the headaches of migrating, and what AI actually means for your team over the next few years. Joining me to break it all down are our two guests. First up, Todd from WEI team. Todd?
Hey, Greg, glad to be here. I'm Todd Humphreys. I'm the cybersecurity go-to-market leader from WEI. I've been in the cybersecurity space for a while now, about 30 years, and I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to digging into the reality of some of these enterprise transformations in the SOC that we're seeing today. And I've said this to a lot of people, but this is one of the more, if not the most exciting times in this industry.
Awesome. Great to have you. And representing the other half of our takeover partner today, Kasey Cross from Palo Alto Networks. Kasey?
Thanks, Greg. It's great to be here. I'm a director of product marketing at Palo Alto Networks, and security leaders today are being asked to do more than ever, defend against sophisticated attacks, but also cut down costs. And so that's why we're here to discuss how they can make that and achieve those goals.
Let's start with the money. The 257% ROI from Forrester TEI is certainly a compelling number, but when a customer's CFO asks how to model this for their environment, what are the 2 or 3 variables that truly move the needle the most?
So money is always a good place to start. The TEI findings align closely to what we hear from customers. For most organizations, the biggest ROI drivers are operating costs, technology costs, and then like breach avoidance costs. So first, many security teams spend a significant amount of time and money triaging alerts and investigating incidents and trying to do this across multiple tools. AI and automation help reduce that effort and improve productivity. Also, organizations are carrying the cost of multiple tools, data stores, and integration. So they have to pay for each of their individual tools, operate each of those tools, and then obviously the added cost of, swivel chair syndrome and moving from tool to tool for investigations. And then thirdly, they need faster detection and response so they can reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. So that's how Forrester found that we provided a 257% ROI. But I like to think of it the opposite way, which is how much organizations saved by moving from the tools they used to have to Cortex XIM. And in that case, we were able to help our customers reduce costs 73% compared to previous approaches.
So Todd, let's give you a chance here to weigh in on the cost side of things. When you're helping a customer evaluate whether to consolidate on a platform like XIM, what does your assessment process look like? And what are some of the things that surprise the customers the most when they see the full picture?
Well, I think in terms of where we start with most of our customers, it's understanding, understanding their existing environment, their licensing, their architecture, the data sources that they rely on, the processes, the analysis process, the investigative process, the hunt process. And, in terms of the tech stack, we're in a good position because we've helped a lot of our customers build the stack from the get-go anyway. So the understanding comes to us pretty rapidly. But the next thing is, what are they solving for? And, you might think it's an obvious answer that I want to protect my assets and my data, as most responsible organizations would say. But often it's unique to their particular risk profile. They might be concerned about the confidentiality of their drug designs, the integrity of their AI applications, which we're seeing more and more these days, or the just simple availability of their networks and systems. The next piece is how's it done? And this is really important from our perspective. We have a concept we lovingly call the ride along. Before we get into a proof of concept with one of our customers, we send an engineer, someone who's done this before, to the customer and do a day in the life of your security analyst. Watch what they do, how they do it. Listen for what they don't like, because that can be an incredibly good clue to what you can improve upon. And really just understand, how the company operates and how the people operate. In terms of the evaluation, a couple key points. We try to make sure that we initially put the same data in so you get a valid comparison of the outcome, and add more data later because it's an opportunity to look at the data you're intaking. Duplicate the automation, the SOAR playbooks and your machine learning models, and then turn on the AI capabilities because this is probably one of the big reasons people are looking at the platforms for the sort of the reasoning-based ability of AI. And then once you've done that, expose it to the same analysts you had the ride along with. And it really it's remarkable how it flows from there once you go through that process.
In your experience, especially in the system integrator role, what about the people integration side? What kind of hurdles do you have to typically overcome here, whether it's not just internal politics, but tech, budget, or maybe something else?
So, I mean, the stuff that's holding people back, you said it and you stole my words. Fear of
Oh,
change. That's okay. It might happen again. It's fear of change. The SOC stack in most enterprises, it's a large, complex investment that's kind of been built and evolved potentially over years by some organizations. And there's a lot of predictability. There's predictability in the tech stack. There's predictability in the cost and how this thing was budgeted. And as I said before, there's predictability in the processes that people follow. And the other thing to keep in mind is the company you're talking to is proud of what they built. So letting it go can be difficult. But I think more than anything, I've been surprised by the emotional attachment that we're seeing from people. They get very attached to their EDR, their SIM, their SOAR playbooks. You might sit down with an analyst and they've got 30 tabs open in their browser. Each one represents a different process that they follow every single day. And you're asking them to change that. And change is disruption. But I think what we find we emphasize with our customers is that the efficiency of integrating to a single platform equals better outcomes. You're going to get better processes, faster response times, way more opportunity for collaboration. So we have hurdles, yes, but I think when they see the value of the platform, the outcomes will justify the evolution.
does Palo Alto Networks offer a financial modeling tool, so a TCO calculator, to help customers see things like licensing, headcount, and how it maps in their current environment against what consolidating on XIM would ultimately deliver?
Absolutely. Well, the Forrester TEI provides an independent benchmark. Many organizations want to really look at how, like, figure out what the cost is for their environment. And that's why Palo Alto Networks provides an online Cortex XM ROI calculator that allows customers to input factors such as analyst headcount, tool count, incident volumes, operating costs, and more. And it provides an easy way to analyze the total costs as well as to build a business case to justify SOC transformation.
For the ones that have been successful versus the ones that have struggled, what really separates those?
It's a good question. I think what we netted out to is board level and executive level commitment to this process and this project out of the gate. And what's critical is that you've got an executive leadership team that understands that there is a vastly different and evolved threat landscape out there. And they know they're going to need to embrace major change to keep up with it. And I think most executives and even board members are pretty keen to that these days. So that the leadership needs to be behind this. You can't start with a mid-level team because they're going to be the ones who fight that you're taking away their tools. But the other thing that the leadership people have to do is they have to support the shifting roles of their people. We're back to the people problem here. Let the people know that they've got a role here. Their roles are going to change, absolutely, but let them know you're going to train them. You're going to teach them the new processes and new systems. Continue to talk to them about what this means to them and their careers. You know how hard it is to find these people. You need to keep them around even through this change. Using familiar processes, you've obviously got a lot of things you've done that worked really well over the last 10 or 15 years. Don't throw it all out. Try to incorporate that into the new platform that you're building. Incorporate good data, but as I mentioned before, take an opportunity to bring in more data, more useful data. And depending on how the system's licensed, that can be easy to do. Take advantage of your historic information. I know, most of these platforms have case information. AI will gobble that stuff up. AI is going to learn from your historic work that you've done to improve on your processes. And then take advantage of the tech, the automation, the deterministic side of it, the ML, which is the probabilistic side of the equation, and the AI, which is the ability to reason. This is why you're looking at a new platform. And the last thing I'll say, and that's long-winded, but recognize the fact that the vendors today have taken on so much more responsibility for building a functional platform out of the gate. 15 years ago, you bought a SIM, you maybe had it feeding some endpoint, being fed by endpoint data or firewall data. You had to make it do everything else. You had to engineer, architect, and engineer the solution. Palo Alto Networks has designed something that is, I don't want to say out of the box, but it works and it provides incredible value out of the gate. So, embrace that when you go into this project. We've told our customers that over and over again. And the on the other side of the coin, don't buy a platform if you're going to piecemeal it. If you're going to use it as a replacement for your EDR or just your SIM, don't waste your time. You're buying a platform because it's a platform. You use it as a platform, not as a piecemeal replacement for a component.
Oh, those are super good points. And it's funny, I think about that a lot when I talk to customers about, are you truly on the a la carte model forever? Is that what you want? And I'm not saying that's terrible, but a
Yep.
platform approach, a transformational approach probably won't be achieved from the a la carte model where you just keep plugging and playing and chasing the next MQ again, chasing the next wave again, and not feeling like you're actually advancing. So, super good point.
Yep.
So speaking of advancing, the AI market continues to get bigger and bigger as far as crowded point solutions and such. Kasey, how do you guide customers that have been burned before? Vendors got acquired, pivot, can't keep pace with the threat landscape. How should security leaders think about vendor stability and how they go about selecting those to help them?
So that's a really good point. And vendor stability is important, but I think that it's possibly more important to think about making that long-term bet and kind of as Todd was mentioning, moving to a platform approach that will help power your SOC. So rather than looking at individual tools and how you can piecemeal them together, security leaders should really be thinking about the vendor that has the scale and the resources and the commitment to continue investing in stopping threats and evolving to address new customer requirements. So, just as important as thinking about will a vendor be around in a year or what will that vendor look like, it's equally or even more important to think about the actual additional cost and complexity of adding each additional tool to your SOC. More tools mean more data to integrate, more pipelines, more management overhead, more places for analysts to pivot between during investigation. And that's why we're seeing many of our customers embracing platformization. A platform backed by a financially strong vendor that continuously invests in R&D to keep you ahead of threats will help you reduce complexity, reduce operating costs, and build a more sustainable SOC.
So where do you see the human analyst in this model 2 or 3 years from now? And what skills should SOC leaders as a whole be helping them develop today?
Yeah, good point. I think everyone's seeing the headlines about AI, and it's both exciting and scary. And what we're seeing in the SOC is that analysts are not going to disappear. So obviously, SOC tools are getting more automated. They're leveraging AI to improve analyst efficiency. But we believe that in 2 to 3 years from now, analysts are going to be just as important today as they were in the past. In fact, maybe more important, and that's because analysts will spend far less time on the drudge work, on triaging alerts and gathering context and doing those repetitive tasks, because that's where AI is going to step in and handle much of that work automatically. So if you think about it, like the human analyst becomes the decision maker, the investigator, and the strategist, and they'll focus on the most complex incidents, validating what AI is recommending and providing that human in the loop kind of step. And as a result, SOC leaders should be investing in skills like threat hunting, incident response, and risk assessment for their team, and understanding how to effectively direct and collaborate with AI. So I think that in the future, understanding how to correctly prompt AI and use AI and is going to be more and more important. So the future isn't fewer analysts, it's analysts operating at a much higher level, supported by AI and automation. And that will help remove a lot of the manual work and the grind from typical security operations that we see like in the past.
The threat landscape is changing so fast, right? But AI, if we're honest, really is kind of democratizing threat creation, threat proliferation. Are your customers more concerned about the cost of modernizing their SOC or the cost of not modernizing in the face of this? What do you think?
Good question. Initially when you walk in the door, it's always concern over the cost. It's the old, oh, here comes a vendor with a platform. It must, be 3x the cost of what I was paying. I joke, but we get that a lot. But the fact is, back to the cost model that, Kasey talked about, the first thing you do is you sit down and you have a conversation about what you have now, input it into the model, and input what the components and the licensing and the engineering and services costs of implementing a platform will be. And I think that dispenses with the initial cost being a concern. People realize that there's a lot that goes into maintaining a cobbled together SOC. We used to call it the Rube Goldberg machine SOC model. So it's pretty clear. You can show that the cost model will show that its platforms are less expensive overall. But today, for a lot of reasons, as we all are aware, as you've just highlighted, Greg, the cost of not modernizing will leave customers at a major disadvantage, in the face of adversaries who are very advanced, in the face of adversaries who are extremely well funded in terms of the nation state, adversaries who have access to amazing technology and they're not afraid to use it, which is happening. You read the Unit 42 reports, and the adversaries are leveraging AI. And then, as if we needed more justification, now there's mythos. Sophistication, volume, velocity of threats are increasing dramatically, and you're going to be forced to respond to it. We were at the Gartner conference a couple of weeks ago, and I talked to tons of vendors, a bunch of executives who said the vendors had to change all their signage to talk about mythos. The vendors had to come down and say, we had to change what we registered for in terms of sessions because we need to understand how to respond to this new frontier, to borrow a term, that we're faced with. But as I mentioned earlier, the good vendors out there are stepping up, and they're responding to this with their products and their solutions as aggressively as a lot of the customers are being forced to. So I think it's a really good change taking place in our industry because of all this.
Thank you so much, Kasey, Todd, for being very candid in your answers today. And honestly, there's one big takeaway. It's that SOC consolidation isn't just about the technology alone. This is a business decision. And with AI moving this fast, the real question isn't what costs is it going to take to modernize, but what it's going to cost you if you don't. If you want to stress test your numbers, build a TCO model, or map out a realistic migration path, reach out to Todd and the great team at WEI. You can always find them on LinkedIn anytime, or just head over to wei.com/cybersecurity.